Freezing cold and I'm Hank Marvin. Those are two things for sure. Should I just keep my robe on? Should we just film in robe? Why not? Why not? Let's get cozy, everyone. Right, I thought I would go through the 22 books I have read since the start of November. So, for the 1st of November, so the past 6.5 weeks, something like that now, it'll be, what is it, 15th, 16th day? 15th of December. 22 books, 18 physical, 4 audiobooks. Let's get into them. Okay, so I'm not great at reviewing books, I'm not great at summarising books, so there's your warning, and we're gonna fly through them. Okay, let's quickly fly through the audiobooks. So the first one I read was Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. My friend Ishi recommended that I listen to the audiobook because he narrates it. Hold on, this camera's a little bit funky, hold on, let me just... And I gave it 5 stars. It is incredible. So it's Trevor Noah's story of being raised during apartheid in South Africa, and it is the story, when you listen to it, you want to scream, laugh, cry, you're shocked. It's just, you feel so many emotions throughout the entire book and they just hit you when you're least expecting them. The way it's written is absolutely brilliant, very eye-opening, and I love how the humour is blended so seamlessly with such big, deep discussion about living in South Africa and growing up during that time. So Trevor Noah's pretty famous, which I didn't really know until after I finished the book, and then I was like, I'm gonna look up Trevor Noah, and I was like, oh, him, obviously. And yeah, fantastic title as well, Born a Crime, because obviously he is mixed race. His mother was black and his father was white, and that was a crime in South Africa. It's just the most incredible journey you take through that book. So definitely, Ishi did say to listen to it, don't read it if you have the opportunity. So I listened to it on Audible, and 10 out of 10. You know when you struggle to remember what happened in a book? The next one I listened to was Bring Me Back by B.A. Paris. I think I listened to 2 of her books on Scribd last month, and I think I'm going to give up on B.A. Paris. It's just, I feel it's not worth the payoff. Now with Bring Me Back, I gave it 3 stars, and it's really bad because I don't really remember what happened. See, that's never a good sign, but I gave it 3 stars. Oh, hold on. Oh, I'm remembering. Young and in love, their whole lives ahead of them. Driving back from a holiday in France one night, Finn pulls into a service station, that's the one! Leaving Layla alone in the car. When he returns minutes later, Layla has vanished, never to be seen again. That's the story Finn tells the police. It's the truth, but not the whole truth. Yes. It was good, it had some good pacing, however when I got to the end I was just terribly disappointed with the ending. Anyway, moving on to the next book. I also listened to The Alchemist, and I think I listened to this on, was it Audible or Scribd? No, it was on Scribd. Funny because after I listened to The Alchemist, which I didn't realise was such a massive book, and I have talked about this I think in the vlog, the reviews are hilarious because it's either 5 star or 1 star. I gave it 5 stars simply because I found some of the points in it really interesting and it was good food for thought. Didn't appreciate the sexism in there, in the storyline, but I did enjoy it. But some of the 1 star reviews are very funny because I don't think the book is meant to be taken literally. Like your search on the road, his search to get to the alchemist, to get to the pyramids, and his journey down through Africa to the pyramids to find his treasure and the people he meets along the way and the life lessons he learns. I don't think it's all meant to be taken very literally. But yes, that is my review. I enjoyed it. There was a lot to take from it. It was nice, and it was a short, quick read as well. I told you I'm really good at reviewing. Okay, the next one I read was The Breakdown by B.A. Paris. I gave this 2 stars. I really hated the ending to this book, and it wasn't the greatest book in total anyway. It's about basically it starts off, I'm not spoiling anything here, none of these will have spoilers in. Woman, she's on the phone to her husband. He basically makes her promise that she will not take the way home through the woods and will drive the longer way to get home because it's too dangerous for her, and I think there was a storm to be driving through these little country roads back home in a scary woodland type situation. Anyway, she doesn't do that. She goes, she drives that way, she sees a car that's broken down, what she thinks is broken down on the side of the road. She stops for a minute, no one signals her for help, so she carries on, and you find out, woman in the car. Something happened to her. Basically going along a psychological thriller of what happened, is she going mad, all of these things. She starts receiving phone calls, you're suspecting of everyone, and I think it's just very easy to figure out who did it, and the who did what, and who's doing who. Who's doing who, who's doing what. So yeah, gave it 2 stars. Anyway, moving on. Those ones I just listened to the audiobook and I don't have the physical copy. I DNF'd 2 books, so let's get them out of the way with. This one I DNF'd yesterday. It's The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. Yeah, I mean, I know it's a young person's book. People read when they're teenagers, but that is no excuse for me. I can read children's books and adore them. Enid Blyton, yes please. So I picked this up and I thought it was a really interesting premise when I read the back, that everyone in this world can hear what other people are thinking at all times, and it's called the noise, and it's very loud. You can have no secrets or anything, and everyone can hear what everyone is thinking at all times. Our protagonist, Todd, then stumbles across a patch of silence. So I thought it was a really interesting premise, that's why I picked it up. I did get about up to page 215, and I hated Todd. I couldn't stand Todd. I actually didn't like really any of the characters, and I also didn't like where it was going, and it was just, I was flying through it because it's a really easy read. However, yeah, I just like, look, I'm not enjoying it, and to be honest, I don't care what happens at the end at this point, so that was the signal for me to just not finish it. And I am happy to DNF books left, right and centre. I prefer not to waste my life, waste my time with books that are just not sparking the joy. Another one that everyone's going to hate me for that I DNF recently is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Morgenstern. I got to about page 120. And so many people messaged me. It was like, no, keep going, keep going. I was like, but it's so boring. I found this incredibly slow, uninteresting. I didn't like the way it was written, really. I think that didn't help me, like, trying to push through it. And every time I tried to pick it back up, because I was like, just another 10 pages. I'll give it another 20 pages. I'll give it another few chapters. I tried to read this, but every time I picked it up, there was no joy at all. No joy at all. And I was pushing myself. I was like, I'm so bored and I don't care. I was like, why am I doing this to myself? I know it's super hyped, and anyone who has enjoyed this, I'm so happy. I'm always so happy when people enjoy a book, but it just was not for me. So I DNF'd that one as well. Right, I read Stephen King. I read The Shining. It was my first King. My first King. And oh my God, I loved it. Like, I can't describe how much I loved this book. I was like, I'm jumping onto the King bandwagon because there's clearly got to be a reason why he's so famous as an author and literally just pumps out books left, right and centre that always end up on the bestsellers list, and everyone just screams about him. So I thought I'd go for his masterpiece first, The Shining. And wow, I'd never seen the film. I actually watched the film straight after it. I don't think this needs an explanation of what it's about because it's so famous. It's about the Overlook Hotel, and Jack and his family go and stay there over the winter. He gets a job there to maintain it till springtime, and the hotel has a terrible history, and it's so interesting. It's so good. But oh my God, the film, what? The film, what? There's nothing in this that scared me. There was one spooky scene, and I'll try not to give too much away. If you still haven't read it or you've never, just read it. It's so good. There's a scene after someone goes into a room, and then someone else goes into that room to check it out, and he's like, nothing. And then you hear something. You hear the shower curtain, and you're like, that was spooky. I love that part of the book. And the film, what did they do? Why? You know when they changed something in a film that didn't need to be changed? That was the bit that spooked me in the book. And then I was waiting for, I was like, this is the scene already. It was like, I had to give it its age, The Shining. The film is old now. And the only reason I powered through with it is because of Jack Nicholson. I could watch that man for hours on end. He was definitely the right choice to play Jack, 100%. But I'm glad Ishii warned me. The whole here's Johnny, the elevator full of blood, and the twin girls at the end of the corridor are not in the book, and no, they're not. I didn't mind the here's Johnny. I thought that was a cool bit of the film. It's iconic. It didn't really change much. But when they change scenes, like the bathroom scene and the film, oh no. So if you've seen The Shining, you've never read the book, I 100% recommend, and I'll be reading a lot more Stephen King because, oh my God, it's like a masterpiece. It's honestly a masterpiece going into Jack's mind. Oh, there's so much. Mwah! I love that book so much. Next we have The Asylum Patient by Alex, Michaelides? I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Loads of people have been screaming about this book, and I'm always late on the bandwagon. I never read early releases, really. It's about a psychiatric hospital with a patient called Alicia who shoots her husband 5 times in the head. Is it 5 times? Yes, 5 times. I always forget how many times. It's on the back, don't worry, I won't be spoiling anything. Then she goes to the psychiatric hospital and she doesn't speak. For years. She just doesn't speak. Not a word. Then we follow a psychotherapist who goes to make her speak. He gets a job at this hospital and he is determined that he can make this woman speak to find out the truth of what happened that night. There is a twist at the end, and I'm normally so disappointed with every twist I ever read. I love thrillers, but it's rare for me to enjoy the ending of a thriller. Please tell me there are others like that. Like, I'll still read thrillers. It's one of my favourite genres, but it's hard. I don't know what I expect the author to do. I'm really hard to impress, it seems, at the end, but I loved the twist. I gave it 4 stars. The twist is interesting, and it's one of those twists that makes you kind of want to read it again, knowing what you know at the end. I liked how it was done, very smart, 4 stars. Next, I read Dear Justice by Nick Stone, which is the sequel to Dear Martin. I gave Dear Martin, I read it ages ago, 5 stars. I find it really interesting. They're very short reads, but Dear Justice is a sequel. So we're following Kwan, which is our main protagonist here, and he is writing letters because basically if you've read, you can read this without reading this. However, this is Justice, the main protagonist of this book, and this is Kwan, and he is in prison. He does make an appearance in the first book, and he just basically goes into the letters he is writing to Justice, and about how lives can be split apart, and it's his backstory of how he grew up and how Kwan ended up in jail. Did he shoot the police officer? It's very relevant. Dear Martin is incredibly relevant. So many good talking points came from this book. Growing up black in America and going into the kind of life, you're brought up in the hood, and it just gives a glimpse of the choices and decisions that people make versus the choice and decisions they have to make or what they are given, you know, in life, because they are black and from the hood. It opens up a lot of discussion. I did enjoy it. Not as good as the first one, I wouldn't say, but still strongly recommend. Not much to say about this. This is Fall and Grace by Mary Hooper. This is about our protagonist here is called Carus, and she lives with her sister, and it is rough times. When is it set? What year is it set? Sorry, 2 seconds. 1861. Woo! What a time to be alive in the slums of London. So Grace lives with her sister, and it starts off very somber already. I don't want to give too much away, but she's been put on a train, and she's holding a bundle, and she has to sneak something to where she's going and leave it there. It's right at the start of the book. That doesn't really spoil anything, and I'm sure you can see where that's going. And it's her basic need for survival in the streets of London after everything that's happened. It's the people she meets. Now, with such a darkness of the 1800s, growing up very poor in London, and the things this woman has to go through, I didn't realise till after. I'm pretty sure this is a young adult, and I would love to have read this as an adult fiction. Like, really don't hold back. Go into the grit, the disgusting, horrible, horrific things. Like, it's a topic of childbirth out of wedlock and things like that, and it's horrific what this girl goes through, but I felt that they held back, and it was very immature. Not immature, how would you put it? Censored for a younger audience. And you know, when you like the concept, I gave it 3 stars because I enjoyed the concept of where it was taking us, but I wanted more. I wanted it just to go there, even if it was hard to read, like Take Me There, you know what I mean, that kind of book. So I gave it 3 stars, but it's nothing noteworthy, I would say, which was a shame because, again, the premise was interesting. Okay, jumping into the next one, we have Primal Fear by William Dial. I read this at the start of November or end of October, but I did finish it in November, and it basically starts off with a gruesome murder of the Archbishop, and a boy is found clutching the knife, covered in blood, at the scene of the crime, and he is arrested, but he then says he doesn't do it. So we follow Martin Vale, who is the lawyer who takes on his case, and we follow the story of them trying to investigate. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the movie. I actually got halfway through the movie, I had to turn it off because I read it immediately, then immediately watched the film. I was like, it's too different, they've changed too much, I don't like it. They're rushing things, I don't like it, and I didn't imagine him the way he is, and yeah, so I just couldn't watch the film. But I did guess, my mom kept telling me there's a huge plot twist at the end, the very end is huge. I guessed it really quickly, what it was, and I was completely right. I guessed the ending, but I still enjoyed the book, I enjoyed the writing, but I don't guess very often the ending of books, so I was quite proud of myself. Next we have Warhorse by Michael Morpurgo. Michael Morpurgo. It is a very short story, and I have watched the movie, it's a very long time ago, but oh my god, I think I gave this, what was it, 4 stars I gave this? I'm tempted on 5, but I kind of want more from it for 5. A lot of you might know the story of Warhorse, but I didn't know the book was written from the horse's perspective. And the horse's perspective only. It is so beautiful. How his owner, and then he gets trained, and then he has to go to war with the soldiers, the brutality the horse encounters, its fellow horse friends, and that's sad, and there's so much you want to cry about in this book, and his story, and if you've seen the film then you know all about it, but that is my review of it. Yes, very quick and short, and because it's a short book, but if you want a quick read, viewpoint of a horse, yes, give me all the books please. Oh god, talking of crying, I read The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom, and I blubbed. Okay, when I showed this in a haul, everyone was like, oh my god, it is amazing. It is. I gave it 5 stars. I couldn't put it down. No one said I would cry like a baby. Please tell me I'm not the only one at the end who cried with his 5th person. You can't tell me you didn't cry. It was uncontrollable how much I was crying, and I was trying to explain the story to Scott, and I had to keep stopping because I was like hyperventilating. Oh my god, so it's basically, at the very start of the book, Eddie, our protagonist who we follow, he dies. And you know he's gonna die. It's the first thing the book tells you, and it's counting down the minutes until he dies. Then, when he goes to heaven, he'll meet 5 people, each individually. Now, all of these 5 people have been in his life. They could have been a major part of his life, like a close relative or loved one, really close for many years or decades, or a distant stranger that your paths have simply crossed once, but they have changed your life somehow. And these 5 people then basically explain the meaning of your life and your meaning of existence on earth. So you can pass happily, understanding, knowing what your life was truly about by 5 people that were in it. It is amazing. This is a magnificent book. I can't rate it high enough. Everyone should read this. And yeah, please tell me someone else cried though, because oh no. Then I did not realise there's a sequel. The Next Person You Meet in Heaven. So immediately I had to buy it. That's why I'm so glad I'm back on Goodreads now, because when I went and ticked it off, I saw his other books. I was like, The Next Person You Meet in Heaven. And this follows Annie's story. Now, if you haven't read the first one, I don't want to give too much away. I gave this one 4 stars. There were so many points that I teared up. A few tears did fall. Again, I was like, oh, for God's sake, what, like out of the blue. I was like, what are you doing to me? And you follow someone else's story, but Eddie is then one of the 5 people that she will meet. So the next person you meet in heaven after your 5 people is someone who has just died, and you explain, because you were in their life. Does that make sense? Yeah, the sequel is wonderful. It's a very short read, but it's beautiful. Oh, I thought it was a bit too similar at first when I started, but then I just started crying randomly. I was like, oh, for the love of God, Mitch, stop it. 10 out of 10. Love it. Love it. The next one I read was You by Caroline Kepnes. I have seen both seasons of the show. If you have not, then a quick summary. So we follow Joe and Beck. Joe is a stalker, and it's written in 2nd person, and you, which is always really interesting, and I knew it would be because of the narration that is throughout season 1 and 2 of the show. This is the first time I have read the book after watching the adaptation. Normally I try and read the book, then watch it on movie or TV. But this I did the other way around, which left me kind of like, well, I knew what was going to happen. So how do I rate it? I gave it 3 stars. I was like, I'm just going to put it in the middle of the road, because there's nothing wrong with it. I didn't hate it. I liked the perspective, but it wasn't amazing. And also the whole time I knew what was going to happen, and it didn't really give me anything more, the book, than the TV show did. So I gave it 3 stars. Okay, next, this is one of the books from that eBay mystery book box I got, and it is A Star Called Henry by Roddy Doyle, and I was obsessed with this book when I picked it up. The writing was just so beautiful. We follow a character called Henry, and he is living in the slums of Dublin in, hold on, the year, 1902. And he basically narrates his whole life from literally birth, from his birth straight through. It's incredible the way that Roddy Doyle describes his life, his parents, like his father, who's like the bouncer at a whorehouse and a murderer. And don't worry, it's at the start of the book, I'm not spoiling nothing. And his mother, and how she keeps losing babies, and the fact that he's born so big and healthy was like a miracle to do that in the slums of Dublin at that time. And basically he goes on to join the Irish Citizen Army when he is a teenager, and you follow his story, and it is really well written, but I only gave it 3 stars. And the only reason I did that was the writing was wonderful, but I felt like halfway through he just started talking about all of these other side characters, like so many side characters. I understand to get the point across of what other people were doing and what was going on at other parts of Ireland during like their revolution, the uprising, but it just like was going on and on about all of these very unimportant characters, and I was like, then I decided to have to drag myself through the book, and that's never a nice thing to do, so I gave it 3 stars. But I have some other Roddy Doyles upstairs and I'm very excited about reading them because his style of writing is fantastic, so long as he doesn't do that again where he just goes off on tangents of all these little side characters, and I'm like, I don't care! Can we get back to the main guy, please? Looking up the mystery box, this was in there as well, and this is, I'm gonna butcher this, even though there's a pronunciation guide at the start. I want to say Bartimaeus, because that is how he says it's pronounced, or is it Bartimaeus? Anyway, it is the Bartimaeus, we're gonna say it like that, trilogy, and is the Amulet of Samarkand by Jonathan Stroud. I am obsessed. This was such a good book. Oh my god. So it's about genies basically, and they're called demons. So it's about demons, genies, whatever you want to call it. So it follows 2 viewpoints, Bartimaeus and Nathaniel. Nathaniel is a young magician apprentice, and he summons Bartimaeus to steal an amulet for him. That's how it starts for the book. And the great thing is Bartimaeus is really sassy. He's like a wise, cracking demon, and you love to see it. There are footnotes in his chapters where it's from his point of view. I'm saying his, they're not gendered, their point of view, and they are so funny. It is hilarious. I love Nathaniel's chapters to follow his side, but to follow the demon, and he's just, I was laughing out loud at parts in this book. So he goes to steal this amulet basically, and then it's just the story of why. You find out why he wants to steal this amulet from this certain magician. And it's based in London, and basically Parliament is run by magicians. The whole world is basically run by magicians who summon demons or genies to do their bidding for them. And London is like the most powerful city in the world with like the most powerful magicians. And it's just really interesting for one. I actually have the sequel ready to go on this, and I gave this 5 stars. I just loved it. It was a really easy, nice read, nice bit of fantasy that you can actually have a laugh at that is also action-packed. So I would recommend if you're looking for something like that. As I want to get through a few more classics, I decided to pick up Oscar Wilde, The Picture of Dorian Gray. I actually read this on Kindle, and then I found this in the charity shop for like 33p, and we can add it to the already read collection. I gave it 4 stars. It is amazing, and I totally get it. I get the Oscar Wilde hype. I really do. His writing was like poetry, and I totally understand now why, if you study literature, you're obsessed and you pick apart everything he says. And my battery's dead, oh my goodness. My goodness, my food is on the move, we must hurry. 6 minutes away. Totally get it. It was like poetry reading this. It's all about the vanity of our young boy here, Dorian Gray, and how his portrait gets painted, and basically his soul somewhat gets trapped within that painting. And obviously I always thought that it was he sold his soul to the devil. That's why I went in thinking the story was about he sold his soul to the devil. I'm guessing that's an interpretation because that's never quite said out loud, but I totally get where it's coming from. So he will remain young, youthful, completely beautiful for the rest of his life, for eternity. And his portrait will begin to change as he commits sins and does terrible things. The portrait will change, but he will stay like this. And it is amazing. I loved this book. I gave it 4 stars, 10 out of 10. Would recommend as one of the classics you should probably try and read if it's interesting to you. But yeah, really enjoyed that. Gotta hurry up. Right, let's talk about this book, Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinbar. I would say it was 5 stars until the plot twist. I really enjoyed this book. I was whizzing through it, got it done in half a day. I was just one sitting, I'm getting through it. And this is the one book, after reading all the reviews, you are split. Most people agree that up until the big reveal and the plot twist, it's like 4 or 5 stars, like, oh yes, yes, yes. And then you'll go either way. You'll either think this is the best plot twist of all time, or you'll be like me, and you'll want to throw it against the wall. I'm not even gonna go into what it's about. Just thinking about it makes me so angry because I loved it so much until that twist, which is almost impossible for you to ever guess that twist, and I can't say anything without giving things away, but the twist, you will either think it is the best twist of all time or you will fling the book against the wall because, no, I'm not even talking about it. I actually was so angry, I dropped it down to 2 stars. I was furious. Anyway, moving on. Now this one I've just this moment finished before I started filming this, and that's The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Wow. Do I even need to explain this book? It feels like everyone has read it, and I can't wait to watch the show, and I have the sequel upstairs in hardback, thank God, because the ending, you can't end a book like that. That's not very fair of you, is it? You shouldn't have done that, should you, Margaret? No, did not appreciate that. Now, I don't think we still know her name, do we? Unless I missed that. Because I was listening to the audiobook for most of this. I started reading it, but then I had things to do, so I listened to the audiobook of it. Do we actually get to know her name? Anyway, it's like a dystopian future where women are there for breeding only. Not as whores, necessarily. Handmaids are there for literally just breeding purposes. And that is what women are at the end of the day. You can be all sorts of women. You could actually be a wife to one of the, or like colonels or captains or the higher up men. But a handmaid's only job is to produce babies. And if they do not produce babies, they are either killed or they are sent off to different kind of camps. Dystopian future of America where women are literally just put down to you will produce a baby or you will be dead. End of story, that's all you're worth. Oh my God, 5 stars. Beautifully written. I love the writing in this book and I can't wait to start the next one. And the next and the last 2 books were these. We have The Girl of Paper and Fire and we have The Girl of Storm and Shadow. Girls of Storm and Shadow. And they are written by Natasha Ngan. Natasha Ngan, yes. And I talked about this in a vlog, so you probably already heard me, so I'm not going to go through it too much. So we follow Lei. Is it Lei or Lee? Lee. L-E-I. Lee. And basically it's her journey of going to be the king's concubine, and there is a romance, a beautiful romance, because she falls in love with another woman, a fellow concubine. And the love story is absolutely incredible. It is hard to read. It is very big trigger warning for sexual assault. That is what is the main premise of this book, as in it delves into a lot of that and it can be quite triggering. So be warned. It does say at the start though, it is trigger warned. But it is the most amazing book of survival and love and ultimate fear and sacrifice, and I really enjoyed it and I gave it 5 stars. I did do more chatting about it in one of my weekly vlogs, which you can watch if you fancy it. But yeah, I gave that 5 stars and immediately had to treat myself to the hardback because I loved it that much when I got the sequel. I gave this 3.5 stars. This is obviously, it goes into a dip. Trilogies go into dips, I find, in the second book, so I wasn't expecting the world from it. I was not expecting it to be as good as The Girls of Paper and Fire, but I really did enjoy some of the characters, and it's basically from the aftermath of what happens at the end of the first book. Obviously, we're just following these characters through their world. I don't want to spoil anything. Did enjoy some of the new characters that we met in this book. Did move the story along, but it was a bit draggy and there was not enough in it. The action wasn't as interesting as the action in the first book. So I gave this 3.5 stars. I am very excited for November 2nd next year when the 3rd one comes out so I can finish the trilogy. Hopefully it was just a slump and we get to the last book and it's just amazing and ends incredibly, but that's all I'll say. I don't want to spoil anything with these books, but definitely recommend this one if you fancy yourself a little bit of a fantasy young adult moment. So yes. Okay, my foodie is here, probably sat in my porch, so I'm gonna love you and leave you. Thank you for joining me. Sorry about me being terrible at reviewing. I will try better next time. Let me know a book recently that has changed your life. I'd love to hear. I always want recommendations, and if you think because I've enjoyed one of these books I'd enjoy another, please let me know. I'm gonna love you and leave you. My food's probably outside and it's wet outside and I gotta go get it. Alright, loving, leaving, shutting up. Bye. For time.